Hello. So if my mouth is matching my words at this moment, then we're just lucky. But going live tends to take about 15 seconds before my words and my mouth match. So I just talk shit until we get to that point. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Infinite Being School. You know me, I'm Crystal. And I go live in the Infinite Being School Facebook group first, and then if you're watching this later, you might be watching it on YouTube or somewhere else. Hi. And what we're going to dive into today is how to break up with a low flow of money and clients forever. Now, that's a bold title, I know, but the information I want to give you before we kind of dive into the material, and if you're watching live and you want to say hi, please say hi, I love it, is that breaking up with something forever is about making a demand of yourself. And that really is, like, this video really could be about 60 seconds long. This could be a reel because in truth, like, to get a change on something forever, what you have to be willing to do is make a demand of yourself. Like, whatever it fucking takes, I'm not living this stupid anymore. Okay, so that's your, like, Cliff Notes version of this video. But where I want to take this and where I want to sort of break this down for us today is into the direction that I'm taking everything business right now when it comes to working with me. So when I've been doing a lot of business coaching for the last 6 years, 7 years, probably since I started creating, because I started creating and then my business started creating very fast and people wanted to know how I was doing it. So I've contributed to a ton of entrepreneurs. It's one of my favorite things to do. Recently I got certified as a Joy of Business facilitator, and what that did for me is it gifted me, more than anything, it gifted me the acknowledgement that I am the joy of business. And this is the thing, business really works for you when you kind of acknowledge it's what you are. It's just natural. It, like, comes out of you naturally. Like, if I didn't create, I would just die. But what I also did in that process is I sort of gave up me. And so what this is your invitation back into what is going to be now the new business universe of Infinite Being School and Crystal Crawford land. And the way you can stay in touch with it and get involved is go to More Clients, More Money with Flow.com. Now, let me dive into the material. So where this topic got created was I created this incredible quiz. That's what you're going to find at More Client. I don't even know what the domain is. More Client, crystaljoycrawford.com/take the quiz. Go there. And when I was creating this quiz, I was really looking at, like, if we were going to invite people, if I was going to invite you to look at the number one limiting energy that you use to keep things small, how would that go? How could that be formed into a quiz, right? And so as I was really looking at it, I'm like, there's kind of three big limitation buckets, and there's like one bucket where you're not limiting yourself, you're just curious, and there's more. Okay, so I want to sort of dive into those three buckets, because this is where if you go to the quiz, you're gonna find out which bucket you land into, and any way you land, there's like so much great information there. You immediately get this incredible ebook I wrote for you. You get invited to come meet with me. Like, there's just an incredible pathway there. But let's look at the three buckets where you might be limiting yourself. Now, I very cleverly named these buckets Super Woo, Conclusionist, or Fried Banana. Now, how do you know if you're Super Woo, Conclusionist, or Fried Banana, and how does that help you? In truth, defining yourself doesn't do anything at all. Actually, definition is limitation. But identification can be freedom. Identification can be an acknowledgement of where you're functioning from. And if money and clients aren't working, you're functioning from something that isn't you. Basically, when you're being you, everything works and it's easy. And when you're not, everything doesn't, including money and clients. So let's dive into Super Woo for a second. So I actually took some notes on my own insight here. So it's super quick, but Super Woo is essentially this. Here's the strength of Super Woo. You already know that the universe supports you and works on your behalf. Here's the thing about people that know something about energy. You already know that there's magic. you already know that there's a way for things to show up that is way beyond the norm, right? Like, ask and receive, you know something about this. You've probably dabbled in spirituality, metaphysics, all kinds of other things, right? So this is the bucket of super woo. You know something. There's a strength here. Where I see this getting turned into a limitation is that where a lot of us have been taught to put our energy is in the manifestation of something, right? So I have this really incredible lady, for example, in my Salon de la Consciousness membership. She's this Mexican lady, she's amazing. She would probably fall more into the category of super woo. This lady knows that the magic is possible. She has had people give her money like out of the blue for her entire life. Okay, she's got an ability with creation, period. Now, where she is limiting herself now, what's happening for her right now is she's getting really frustrated because the things that she wants and she's asking for aren't showing up, right? So this is the thing with money and clients. Money and clients are these symptoms of how we want our life to be. We want our life to work in a different way. And when it doesn't show up, we get really frustrated. So her too, right? She's been gifted all this money, but now the money's running out and she's getting frustrated because she doesn't really want to do the thing that is pulling on her to do. She wants it to show up in another way. And so she comes into the call with a lot of questions. So one of the things we looked at last week is I said, well, how much are you projecting and expecting that the universe deliver the money in the way that you want? And when we started to look at that, it was huge. So that was kind of piece number one of like where she was limiting herself the most, was she was projecting and expecting the universe to deliver this in a certain way to her. And I see a lot of us do that. It's like, well, the money should be there. People should come to my class. Anytime we're doing a should, we're projecting. And there's literally only three things projections and expectations can create, and that's separation from us and other people, rejection of us and other people, and judgment of us and other people. That's it. That's all it can create. You cannot project something into existence. It doesn't work. So that was piece number one for her. And piece number two was, I said, have you ever acknowledged how you actually create? And so this is what I see with kind of the super woo bucket. If you fall into the super woo bucket, is generally speaking, and this is general for now, super woo tend to not acknowledge how they create. They kind of just think everything just happens magically, which nothing happens. We create everything that shows up in our life. Nothing happens to you. So, but the way you create might be really inarticulatable, really, really, really energetic. And it might be so intangible to you that you've totally negated it. So those are typically the two things with super woos that's like, you know, I'm projecting, expecting that it should work this way and it's not. And two, I've never acknowledged how I actually create. So that combination of things renders you completely impotent. Like, you can't function because you're busy projecting, which isn't working, and you're busy ignoring you, which isn't working. So there's some keys then to unlocking your abilities as a being that include acknowledgement of how you really create, and not projecting anymore, but really going, what can I ask for? How much can I receive? And what can I contribute to this showing up? And what can this contribute to me? It involves getting engaged in a different way. Okay, so if you want to find out if you fall into super woo, you can take the quiz. crystaljoycrawford.com/take the quiz. So the second big bucket that I've really seen, I called Conclusionist. Now listen, y'all, I would land in this bucket so many times, you have no idea. If you've hung around Access Consciousness, you know this term, Conclusionist. It's not very flattering. Most of us judge ourselves for being a conclusionist, but here's what I see as the strength of being a conclusionist. For the most part, those of us that are very, very, very good at going to conclusions are incredibly intelligent. We have a very strong intellect. We have educated ourselves to within an inch of our life in a million different directions, and most likely have been through a lot and have learned how to like use our brain to cope. Okay? Now, this might be obvious, but where that becomes an incredible limitation is that you can only take your life and your business as far as if you're using your mind, you can only take your life and your business as far as your mind can go. And your mind can only reference the past and past experience, conversations it's had, memory. Your mind is literally like the ceiling to your life and your business. You cannot go farther than your mind's willing to go if that's where you choose to live. So every single conclusion we come to, and I catch myself in 100 different conclusions in a day. This is not about being perfect, but every single conclusion that you come to limits what can show up. So let's see here. I don't even know what's a great example with clients and money. It's like, I have to work hard. I have to work hard for clients and money. Ever since I moved to a new country, money has stopped coming in. Anything basically that has a period at the end of it is a conclusion. So it's really like conclusionists are, I would say, probably one of the harder groups to work with, and I'm putting myself in that group because we're so strong in our conclusions. So when you're doing a conclusion, you're convinced you're right. And that rightness backs up the validity of the conclusion, and then you don't want to let it go because you're right. Why would you let go of something that you're right about? And we are so determined to be right that we'll hold in place all these fixed ideas because to let go of them means we're going to be wrong. I had a moment today where I was like doggedly heading down this path, and I was watching the future. It was going to result in this like 48-hour period of blah, 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 blah. And I'm sitting with myself after being very determined in my position. That's a conclusion. And I'm sitting with myself after going, oh my gosh, if I have to maintain this position, then I have to give up all this pleasure for the next like 2 days. Is that something I'm really going to choose? And that's the thing about conclusions. They're fixed positions. And so we have to learn to work with ourselves in the moment, really. We have to really learn to work with ourselves and catch ourselves in a conclusion and really go, is that true, or is there something else possible? And the longer I do this with me, the gentler I get. But that's really, if you're a strong, firm conclusionist, it's acknowledging it. Acknowledgement is such a key. Acknowledging how amazing you are at that. And I don't mean that sarcastically. I mean, you're amazing. Number two, if you can be that amazing at conclusions and rightness, what else can you use that power for? It's a fuerte, it's this power. What else is possible? And then the third big bucket, and then we'll talk about energy curious, this one will go a little long, is I call fried banana. Now, I would also land in that bucket sometimes, because fried bananas, here's your strength. You can work. You can work. You will put your head down and you will get to work to the exclusion of your body, of anything else, of your awareness. Like, you will just put your head down and go to work. And that's why we're fried. Right? So I would probably land in 2 buckets if I took my own quiz. I also land in energy curious. So, I mean, the quiz is inexact, but it's fun. So fried bananas can work. Here's where that becomes a limitation, is that fried bananas tend to ignore what they're aware of, and they tend to ignore the track changes that have occurred, that are occurring, that they could listen to, that would actually cultivate elegant action. The thing about those of us that really, really like to work is that a lot of times we'll do a lot of the doing, but we won't necessarily see the fruit of the doing, right? And that's because energy changes all the time. So when it comes to like a flow of money and clients, if you're not paying attention to the energy when it's shifted, it's like the wind. It's like, pirating a ship on the ocean, or captaining a ship on the ocean. If the captain doesn't pay attention to the wind, the ship goes in a totally different direction, or something else. And listen, I've never captained a ship, so this is very rough. But I can see how as a captain of the ship, you both have to have a direction and pay attention to the ocean. The ocean and the wind and the earth are just as much a part of your experience as your decision about where you're going. So you could decide you're going to go in a straight line all day long, but the earth is the earth, and it's constantly changing and throwing things in your path, you know, like storming and winding and raining and all those things, right? So if you have to surrender to that naturalness that is you going somewhere on a natural element, the ocean. And that's what I'm talking about when it comes to fried bananas. It's like fried bananas tend to ignore the ocean that they're on, the wind, the air, the earth. And so, you know, I will talk about myself, like I can so easily go in a particular straight direction and just not pay attention to the other information that's coming, or whether or not something's working, or whether or not I need to shift gears. This year for me has been all about listening to the gear shifts in my own life with what I've chosen, and also in the world. And so many times when you're paying attention to the energy, you don't have an articulation for what it is you're aware of, just that you're aware and that something needs to shift. And so one of the things that fried bananas need to do is start to listen to themselves. And many times, because those of us that really like to do a lot need this, you have to kind of sit back and almost relax more. And that can be one of the most challenging things for a fried banana to choose. But it can also be one of the most rewarding. And so this year for me has been a lot about listening, a lot about listening and choosing and moving and trying and playing, and because I can perceive the direction has shifted, and I'm playing with how that can show up. So, you know, like what you're going to get to participate in now, this new business universe, if you choose, has come from that. Has come from choosing in different directions, like really going, what am I aware of? What is this? What can I do with it? And then you've got energy curious, and for those of you guys that are already energy curious, you have everything that you require. All of us have everything we require. Just some of us aren't limiting ourselves as much, right? So if you're already energy curious, you already have this innate curiosity, and all we really need when we're energy curious is like, what else? What else? What else is possible? And many times for me, I just need to like add to my life, add energies to my life, add people to my life, add class, add whatever to my life. And that grows this already existing curiosity. So no matter where you fall into which bucket today, it can change. And that's really the bigger conversation of everything. And to me, business and money are the biggest, greatest facilitators of consciousness and greatness on the planet. You cannot have a thriving, active, full-hearted business if you aren't willing to be you. And so it's not really that mysterious, but it can have some steps, and you might actually need somebody to come alongside of you and go, okay, can you look at this with me? Look at what my point of view is. Look at what I can choose to change it, and can you help me with some questions? That might be required. So I just, to get involved, all you have to do is take the quiz, crystaljoycrawford.com/take the quiz. There's no tricks. It's flat out a quiz. It spits out your fun result. You get an email with some tools you can use right now, and a really amazing ebook, and an invitation to either come meet with me and see how we can work together, or you can join the hot seat call that I'm going to do on Friday. And so I'm going to leave it at that. You guys could take the quiz and have fun with that. And I'll pop back in here throughout the week, speaking more to specific questions that you guys have, and we'll get started. I'm excited. I'll see you in the next conversation.